Today's lesson is going to be on really it's titled The Gain or the Gap. I teach a course that's called Elevate You. And this is one of the things that I do because I love to help people understand that they can become the person that they've always imagined themselves to be. And I didn't know that I could have that for myself. I grew up with a really great family, but I will tell you, my dad was a logger. So he got up early in the morning and he hauled logs, and he taught me a very good lesson. Let's see if our family members knew one another. You have to work really hard for your money. Anybody else come from that background? You got to work really hard for your money. Oh my word. And was I working hard for my money? For sure. And oh, good. Here's Shantae. Yay. So Shantae is joining us from South Africa. She was a client and now she's living her best life. And so we're so glad that she's here. Hello, Shantae, or Shantae. I'm so glad you're here. Um, One of the things that I learned growing up is I had to work really hard for my money. And I also believed that I could only have a certain amount of money. And I believe that I had a lot of beliefs about myself, about what I should be and who I should be. I grew up in the church and I had a lot of religious beliefs about who I am as a female and what that looks like. And so there came a time where I was working in my restaurant. I owned a restaurant, and my husband owned his own business as well. He owned a drive-through coffee bar. And so in our little town here in Vernon, that's what we did. And we were working about 10 to 12 hours every day at our business, because I don't know if you've ever had a storefront business, but if your business is open, you got to be there. And so I was totally there. Is this like I have a couple more people coming on. I'm really excited about this today. Um, anyway, one of the things that I noticed when I was building my business is I had no free time. I had none. I was giving, and we got all kinds of accolades and awards from our community for doing such a good job. And uh, I will tell you, I was worn out. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Where you're just doing the grind and you're just doing the grind and doing it. And there wasn't any room for anything different. And so when there was an accident where my dad, he was 61 and he was killed in a car accident. It was just an accident that happened, but that changed the way that I saw myself. And there's just something, I think, for me, my relationship with my dad was always the person I could rely on if something went sideways. Do you know what I'm talking about? He was that person that if things weren't going right, I always knew I could rely on my dad. And when that energy was gone, Anna Bart, I'm so glad you're here. It's like old home week. I'm just loving it. Welcome, and welcome to our guests. Welcome, Tommy and Lise, and all of you that have come on. Um, Anyhow, when I was living with this idea that my dad was gone, there was a feeling inside of me that shifted. Do you have that one person in your life that you know you can count on no matter what? That one person, and that one person that I could count on was not there. And it kind of shook me up a little bit. Like I knew that if I ever had a problem, I could go to my dad, and he was just really quite smart. He was very gruff, but I mean, he was really quite smart. But I could go to him and he would help me solve anything and everything. And when he was gone, I was really lost. And then a few years later, my mom got cancer and she passed away. And my mom was my other person. My two people that helped ground me and help me know who I am are now gone. And so all the reminders of who I should be, I I didn't realize this, but in love, my parents told me who I should be. And you know what I realized when they were gone? That isn't what I want to be. It's not who I want to be. And it's not that my parents were bad people. I mean, they were very loving, wonderful people. You can't even imagine how many people showed up to their funerals and tell us stories. And I'll still go to my little hometown in Post Falls, Idaho, and people will say, "Oh, your mom and your dad, they were such great people." And, I listened to what they said, and I was really good. I was a good little girl. I did everything that my parents wanted me to do. But when they passed away, I realized I had been living my life to please them. And I know that if my parents knew that, it would bother them so badly. But how many of you have grown up and you just wanted to be the good kid? You just wanted to do everything right, and you work really hard to do everything right. You went to school, you did your best to get good grades, and you may have went to college. I went to college. I've been told my whole life to get married to a really nice man and have kids and all this stuff. And can I tell you, I didn't want to get married, nor did I want to have kids. And I still did it. I'm still married, by the way. And I do have 3 adult children. So you want to wave, Matt? Everybody knows Matt. This is Matt. He calls himself the most helpful assistant to me, but he actually is an amazing coach with me as well. But there was a period of time in my life where I was taught to please my husband as well. And so not only did I have a layer of, I got to do what my parents want me to do, I want to be a good little girl. And this was running on in the background, and I didn't know it was running. It was running and running and running and running. And then I also was involved in the church, and I had a lot of things at church that was teaching me. And so all of those programs are running and running and running and running. And then I got married to a man who decided to become a pastor. So I had all of those programs in me running, 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 and I became a mother. And all the women that looked like they stepped right out of a catalog. And I didn't look that way. I was running a business and had kids, and I was a mess. Do you know what I mean? But every day I got up and I painted the barn. Do you know what that means? You put the makeup on, you dress, you put the jewelry on, you look the part. And I did not like it. There was no room for me. If I want to be free, as my parents passed away and I realized all these things were falling off, who am I now? My kids were graduating from high school. My parents had both died. My kids were graduating from high school. I had so much anxiety. I couldn't walk into my business anymore. If and I my husband and I resigned from church, and I just couldn't go back to that. So if I'm not a daughter, if I'm not a churchgoer, if I'm not a mother, if I'm not a business owner, who am I? And I realized my name really didn't give me an identity. Who am I? If I'm not all of these things, who am I? Have any of you had stuff like that that's happened where something that defined you went away? Maybe a relationship, maybe a job, maybe a career, maybe something, and all of a sudden you're left with this thing of, I don't know who I am. And this was a time where either you can crumble or you can come up out of the ashes, the phoenix idea. And so I was fortunate enough that I met a gentleman named Bob Proctor. I was searching for something, and I came across Bob Proctor, and he says, "What do you want?" I couldn't figure that out. I had sort of heard about the law of attraction, but I thought that was like new agey, weirdo stuff. You know what I mean? And I didn't feel comfortable with it. But you know what? How many of you know who Bob Proctor is and have seen a picture of him? He looks like an elder at church. He looked like this wise man, and the things that he started saying, I resonated with. And I went, ooh, I like what he's saying. And the more I started listening to him, I was like, this sounds familiar, but it doesn't, it sounds familiar, but it doesn't sound familiar. And the first thing I started doing was he asked me, what do you want? And I remember for 3 months, I wrote down on a piece of paper, what do I want? I went through all the suspects, what my parents would want for me, or what society would want for me, what the church would want for me. I went through all these things, and I was so exhausted doing all of those things that I didn't really know what I wanted. And every day I would write out, what do I want? And they gave me some prompts and some things, like what kind of house would you like to live in? And it was like, man, I couldn't even think of monetary things about a house, or I was married, I had kids. It wasn't any of that. But what I finally came to is I wanted purpose. I wanted to find my purpose. I had done what everyone else said, but I didn't really know what my purpose was. And so I finally started playing around with it. And you know what I decided that I wanted when Bob gave me an idea, and it was really foreign to me. It was really foreign, but I'm going to tell you the idea he gave me. He said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'd like to make a lot of money. I'd like all these problems to go away so that I can think. And he said, well, what's a lot of money? And I said, I don't know. And so he said casually, why don't you turn your annual income into a monthly income? Hold the phone. What does that mean? Think about your annual income for a moment. What would it be like if you could make that in a month? Well, I rejected that idea. I didn't know anybody who could make $50,000 a month. I rejected it. And I said, how can I possibly do that? This is what I'm used to doing to make money. How could I fit a whole year into a month? I'm already working 10 to 12 hours every day, and I can only get to 5,000 a month. And he said, don't worry about the who or the how. How many of you right away, you want to know, how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you do that? We all go, how do you do that? That's the first question we ask, is how do we do that? And you know what happens? Our mind starts going, and we start rejecting things. Well, I can't do that, and I can't do that, and I can't do that, and I can't do that. And that's what I did. And you know what? He gave me the best advice. Do you know what that advice was? I would write this down. Don't worry about the who or the how. Don't worry about the who or how. What do you mean? How am I supposed to do it then? He said, don't worry about it. What I want you to do is write the feeling of it. What would it feel like to make $50,000 a month? Oh, my mind rejected it. How would I know what 50,000 feels like? He said, well, you've made it in a year. So you know what 50,000 feels like. Why don't you now, instead of making a year, what would it feel like if you could make it in a month? What do you think about that idea? I will tell you, it took me a few weeks to write out what it would feel like. And you know what? It didn't happen in a big way. I want to tell you how it happened. It happened by me at first saying, what would I love the most? Now, in our restaurant, and I'm sure you have a similar story as I do, in our restaurant, we were open Monday through Friday. We got the weekends off unless we did a big catering. But we had to be out of the house and opening the doors by 6 o'clock. So I had 3 kids that I was um, trying to get off to different schools and all kinds of things. And so this habit of being up and out of the house by 6 o'clock was a big habit. What I loved was when there was a statutory holiday and we would close our shop, because then I got to sleep in. And the weekends, I loved the weekends because we would sleep in. And my favorite thing to do on the weekend was to make a pot of coffee and get up before anybody else and read a book with my husband and us dream. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Those moments where you can kind of sneak away and it's calm and you kind of chat and talk. It was my favorite thing. Listen, if you ever get an hour time to spend with Matt and calm, and it's like an island. It's like it's so peaceful, it's so wonderful. It's my favorite thing to do. Still to this day, it's my favorite thing to do. If there's anybody I want to spend time with, it's Matt. If I can spend an hour with him by myself, not worried about business, not worried about anything, not worried about the kids, not worried about, but just authentic time with Matt. He's my favorite person. Do you have a person like that? A person that you just love spending time with? Well, that feeling inside of me felt opulent, luxurious, but I didn't get it very much. I really wanted it more than what I was offered. Do you know when you got three kids, two businesses, two dogs, a pool, you're involved in the community, you got bills, you got, everything to steal away for those moments. Isn't it funny? I use the word steal away, borrowed the time. And so when I put down, he asked me what my favorite thing to do and what would it feel like if I could do it more than what I was doing. And so I wrote a story because this could never happen in my life right now. I wrote a story that I was going to have coffee with Matt on a Tuesday at 7 a.m. Could never happen in my world. In the world I had created, that could not happen. And that was worth $50,000 to me if I could do that whenever I wanted. That feeling of that freedom, the freedom where somebody wasn't telling me what to do or I didn't have to go somewhere, but that feeling of freedom, that represented freedom to me, that feeling. Now that might not be freedom for you. Freedom for you may be something totally different, but that was freedom for me. And so I started living with the idea of the freedom. How would I want my time with Matt? I wrote a story as if we woke up in a big, fluffy bed with luxurious linens in a really comfortable bed. And we woke up and I could look over and see my husband there, sleeping peacefully, no worries. That feeling felt so good. What would happen if he didn't have to work so hard and he wasn't stressed and that he was just living this beautiful thing? I didn't even move out of the house. I was in the same house, but I moved my bedroom furniture around. Now, this may sound really silly. Why is she in so much detail about this? The feeling is the secret. So, the feeling of moving my furniture around on the opposite wall was the wall that went to the outside. And I imagined I put French doors in there and I built a deck in my imagination. And that I could go to the kitchen and put the pot of coffee on, grab our coffee, grab our books, and go and sit on that deck in our backyard and have coffee. And I just love the feeling. I bought myself in my imagination new patio furniture. I redid the landscape. I spent time in this beautiful feeling. And you know what? I read that story every day for 3 months, every day, the feeling of it. And that $50,000, I had a feeling that I traveled to go see my children going to school in Europe. This was like a couple of years before it happened. And I wrote that out that we were going to go, they were going to school in Europe and I'd never been across the ocean. And I thought, wouldn't it be great? I mean, my kids talked about traveling. And so I wrote that in there. What would happen if I could pay for them to go? And I just lived in the dream of the idea. And 3 months later, I turned my annual income into a monthly income. And you might be going, wow, what did you do? How did you do that? Do you know the how was already in me? I just wasn't releasing it. It doesn't matter what I did in the physical world. The miracle was really I changed my thought and I attracted the idea to me. You see, when you live in your vision, you connect to an emotion. In fact, do you want me to be a little bit more scientific about this? When you live in a vision, do you know what that realm is called? It's called the quantum realm. And if you can see it in the quantum realm, you don't need to know how to do it. You see, in our state right now, in the presence, can I tell you we live by science? And the science that we live by in the presence is time, distance, mass, electrical charge. That's physics. Everything that we do is based on time, distance, mass, and electrical charge. To be anything, to do anything is all based on physics. Now, I didn't know physics. My parents taught me things without knowing physics, but everything is done by physics. Now, let me tell you about quantum physics. It doesn't follow the same rules as physics here in the present moment. In the quantum realm, you don't need time, distance, mass, and electrical charge. You don't need any of those things. In your imagination, in the quantum realm, that exists. Do you know what feelings are? Can I just tell you what feelings are? Feelings are a vibration. When somebody says, I'm sad, they're telling you the vibration they're in. I'm sad because of this is the frequency. This happened in my life, and I am sad. There's a frequency and a vibration. When you go into the quantum realm, you can pick a frequency and a vibration, a feeling. You see, a vision connects you to a vibration. A vision is a frequency and a feeling is a vibration. Do you know what can exist in the quantum realm, but when you ask somebody what they would love, do you know what's not? If I were to ask you if you could have anything you want in the quantum realm, if you could tell me what that is, do you know what I bet you wouldn't do? Tell me about all the problems. In the quantum realm, you cannot have problems. Isn't that great? You can see yourself already the wish fulfilled, what kind of life you're going to have. Everything in the quantum realm can exist. It exists. It's already done. In fact, if I told you this, I want you to really lean in. Your success is absolutely guaranteed in the quantum realm. You can take that energy and bring it back into the now. And now you can apply time, distance, mass, and electrical charge. Do you know what will get in the way of that? Your past. Your past will say, this is how you have to do it. And I'll tell you, it can't be done here. Because what you know won't get you there. If it did, you would already be there. This has to be a feeling that you have in the future, something new that you're putting towards this idea, a new feeling. This is where a vision allows you to have the feeling of it, but then you know what comes next is a goal. There's a difference between a vision and a goal. A vision allows you to have the feeling of it, and you want to do something that you love, because when you start saying, I want to put time, distance, mass, and electrical charge to that goal, that becomes a discipline. And discipline with love allows you to move forward. Discipline without love is punishment. How many of you are very disciplined and you don't get what you want and you just can't stand it? Oh, I feel this way about exercising. I used to feel this way. I don't anymore because I see what I love from exercising. But I have to tell you, for a long time, exercising felt like punishment to me. I would have people tell me, if you want to get in shape and you want to do this, you got to exercise. And the feeling that I had about exercising was punishment. I'm punishing myself because I'm not in shape. And I had to learn to control the feeling of it to say, what would I love? I had to keep the vision very, very clear. People lose the vision when they start doing the discipline and then they give up. You see, there's this word called faith, and I want to tell you something about faith. Faith is a free gift. It's a free gift. We don't have to know how faith works. You're given faith. Faith is the belief in the unseen where you magnetize yourself. And I will tell you, we don't know how to wield this gift of faith. In fact, there can be such a dominant feeling about faith that we don't realize faith will give you exactly what you ask for. It's a matter of how do you wield your faith. Faith doesn't have really any significant meaning anymore because we use faith to describe certain beliefs and everything. But faith, if you look at what faith is a belief in the unseen. So when you think of the idea of faith, your faith, wherever you put your faith, is exactly what you're going to receive. Faith has no meaning to it. Faith just means it's a way. Faith is a way. And your faith is always working, whether you're aware of it or not. It's always working. Just what do you have your faith in? So there's this idea that I'm sure we all feel this in the world right now, a polarizing belief. Do you know there's a lot of polarization happening in the world right now? Do you feel that? Someone can say this and right away they'll say, no, it's this. And you can have this thing going back and forth of different ideas, and that can start vibrating and it can start driving you crazy if you have too many vibrations going on at the same time. There's this natural law called the law of polarity. Both exist. Do you know if you think about a table, the top of the table to the floor, let's say, is 3 feet, but from the floor to the table is 3 feet. The distance between them is the same. They're just on opposite sides of it. No more effort is required for you to measure from the table to the floor as it is from the floor to the table. It's the same thing. But I can tell you, if I'm over here in a negative state about something, no more effort is required for me to change that state into looking at it from a different perspective. Do you know what? Wealth and poverty can exist on the same frequency. It's a matter of, do you want to put your attention on poverty or do you want to put your attention on wealth? I'd rather say richness than wealth, but you're either going to be in lack or you're going to be in richness. You're either going to be in poverty or you're going to be in wealth. It is your use of how you see the energy is what's going to determine what you're going to attract. You see, the feeling truly is the secret, and your faith is always at work. What you want to challenge is your belief. What is your belief? And people put belief and faith and all of this kind of thing all jumbled up, and it's all enmeshed in this big ball that sometimes you don't even know what your thoughts really are about. And so we want to untangle this to understand how we're using physics, how we're using thought energy. And I can tell you, you can be in the habit of seeing things in the negative a lot. Like, this is what I want. If this is what I want, this is positive. This is what I would love to have. But we can think opposite thoughts of it, and we're in a negative state towards what we want. I want to create flow or wealth or whatever the case may be. However, I'm in debt. I can't find a job. I can't do this. You can't have two feelings going on at the same time. You love one and hate the other. Which one do you want to entertain? They both exist. All of it exists. Here's the thing. I think people believe successful people don't have any problems. People who look at successful people, they think, man, they don't have any problems. They don't have any issues. Listen, every successful person I know has problems. It's just they don't let those problems dictate who they're going to be. For some reason, we think successful people have no problems. We see people who are doing well and we think they have no problems. Oh, they have problems. Trust me, they have them. They just don't dwell on them because they put their belief and their faith somewhere else. See, your faith is always working. You don't need to work your faith. You don't need to drum up your faith. Your faith always is working. It's always working. However, your belief is what determines the power of where your faith is going. So you don't want to check your faith. You want to check your belief. What do you believe? Yes, Matt.
Angie, I think this is so key because one of the things that I have become aware of is that in the successes that we have, the problems keep showing up. And if I'm not careful, I will fall back into my old way of thinking and go, yeah, see, we're really not that way. This is the way that it is. Or there's, and it's like, man, no, it really is a decision that I have to stand firm on and saying, no, this is the way that I am. So becoming aware that super successful people still have all the same problems, it's like, man, but what did they do? They don't focus on that. They
No,
focus on the success. And
no.
I think that, okay, when I get successful, then I'm not going to have those problems. It's not true. Yeah. But that's what makes it so great. That's what makes the successes so amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, you just learn to not pay attention to them anymore. Do they exist? Absolutely, they exist. It all exists. But it's a matter of where you're putting your belief. And this is where the idea of in the sequence of this course that I'm teaching is we come to lesson number 8. We're at lesson number 8. And lesson number 8 is called the gain in the gap. And so if you understand your faith, then you want to ask, am I putting my faith in the gap or am I putting my faith in the gain? And I will tell you what I find with most people when they want to talk and they say, this is what I want. However, this is, and they'll, without knowing, they'll say, this is what I want, but this is what I'm tuned into. And they'll tell me all the problems of why they can't have this. I can't have this because of this and this and this. And it's like, why do you want to tune yourself to that? Well, somebody told me that I'm this and this and this. Do you know for sure that that's true? It may be true, but do you want to tune into it? Do you want to tune into it? It exists, but do you want to tune into it? And people don't understand what they're attuning themselves to. You think about a radio station, you tune to it. You're tuning in to the idea of it. What do you want to tune into? What I find is most people want to do this idea. They think in order for me to get over here, and I'm here and I want to get over here, I have to atone for this, meaning I have to make up for this. I have to fix this. This has got to be fixed before I can come over here. If this was just fixed, then I could come over here. This doesn't need any more help. Let it go. No, no, no. I have to fix it. That's because you've been attuned to it for a really long time. What would happen if you let it go? What would happen if you let it go? So I want to tell you about an idea of why it's important to work on your self-image, your self-identity, what you are attuning yourself to. I'm going to tell you, when I started working with Bob, he talked about building a self-image. I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought he meant how I felt about myself. And so I started telling him all the things about how I felt about myself. And he was like, I'm not interested in that. I want to know how you want to feel. Well, I want to feel, drying my tears. I want to feel this way and this way and this way. Okay. All that's happening is you're not tuned into that. You're tuned into this idea. And it wasn't until I read this really great little chapter out of a book by Price Pritchard that really, really helped me. And it's called U Squared. And he talks about suspending disbelief. This is a decision. And I will tell you, one of the first lessons that we learn in this course is decision. How many of you who have been studying with me thought you were really good at making decisions? I thought I was really, really good at making decisions. And I realized I wasn't really making decisions. I was doing what I was programmed to do, which that wasn't making decisions. I was just following a program. And I started learning to make decisions, which is something different. I want to make a different decision. And so he talked about act as if your success is for certain. Instead of holding back because you don't have hard proof that you can make a quantum leap, see if you will end up with evidence proving that you can't. I thought about that idea and I thought, yeah, I have a lot of belief that I can't. I have a lot of proof about that. But I started thinking, what would happen if I could prove that I can't do that? That's sort of what I started thinking about. He says I can make 50,000. I'm going to show him how hard it really is. And what I found is that it wasn't hard. It was actually easy. What would happen if whatever it is that you want, and I'm not here to tell you to change your income or anything like that. That was what my desire was. I'm not here to tell you that should be yours. I'm just here to tell you that was my desire. I hear a lot of people say, well, you turned your annual income into your monthly income. That's what I should do. And then I come to find out as we spend time, that isn't really what they're interested in. They're interested in it, but they're not committed to it. They're actually committed to something else. And it's only through study of yourself do you realize what that something else is, what your purpose is, what it is that you really want to accomplish. Miranda is a really, hi, Miranda. Miranda is a really great case in point. She heard my story and she was like, I want to do that. And so we started, she came in here and we started studying, we started doing something. And then finally she came to a point of, this is really what I want to do. And now she is a champion. She's a champion. Do you call it bodybuilder? Champion bodybuilder? What is it called?
Yeah, I guess bodybuilding.
Oh my gosh, she's a champion. She just went to a competition and she placed very, very high up, #1 spots, and she is a champion. And she and I have talked about who knew this is where you were going to apply it, but this is part of her identity of seeing herself as a strong woman. I know there's many, she's just starting her journey. And she doesn't know if it's going to be in bodybuilding or not. But what happened was she learned to make a decision to be the version of herself that she's always wanted to be. She has no idea what it's going to lead to. But I can tell you this, her idea of turning her annual income into a monthly income, she now is beginning to see that it's possible for her. She wasn't in the feeling of it until she started having success. And now in that success, she's seeing herself do something different. She had to suspend disbelief and just get into a habit of seeing herself differently. So what he says in this little book right here, this is a point that I wanted to read. Your skepticism So when I said turn your annual income into a monthly income, might not be your goal, but whatever your goal is, your skepticism, which you presumed is based on rational thinking or objective assessment about factual data about yourself, is rooted in mental junk. Your doubts are not the product of accurate thinking, but habitual thinking. Years ago, you accepted a flawed conclusion as correct, began to live your life as if those warped ideas about your potential were true, and ceased the bold experiment in living what brought you many breakthrough behaviors as a child. Now it's time for you to find the faith that you had in yourself before. You know what? This is what I love watching Caitlin. I don't know if she's still on here or not, but one of the things that I really loved when I watched Caitlin was here is a successful woman in Idaho building a tremendous business in her own home online. And it was just fantastic. And the amount of people that follow her and purchase, it was amazing that she took something really, really simple and she made it into a beautiful product and of service to other people. It is fantastic. I will tell you, to build a business like that, she is probably doing better than most businesses that have a storefront because she has a belief and she goes out and serves in her own unique way. She's really good at it. It's tremendous. It's amazing to me. And what I really love, and Caitlin, you and I have to chat because I want to know more about it, but I just love the mindset and I love the calmness and her serving. I just love that feeling. And you know what? The feeling is the secret. You can tell she loves what she does. You can tell she loves it. There was a time in my life where I began to realize that my belief about myself was limiting me. Each of us has a story of a limiting belief about ourselves, like such an outrageous story that it doesn't even make sense to everyone else. It's illogical to everyone else. Absolutely illogical. But to you, it feels absolutely sane. Do you know what I mean? You can have this belief and it makes so much sense to you and it can limit you because it feels logical. It feels everything that you'll believe it. And you won't realize it's a running program that's in the gap of where you want to go. I'm going to give you a story. I know I've told this story before, and I'm so sorry if you're tired of hearing it, but the feeling of it is what caused me to not have the success I always wanted. You see, I had a belief that I couldn't be successful because I had a lot of images telling me that I had to be a certain size, a certain weight, a certain look. I had to be that to be successful. And so I have to tell you, I'm a plus size gal and I like myself, but I used to not. I used to be ashamed of myself. I used to think there was something wrong with me. In fact, I kept all of the success away because here's the story. Are you ready? If you only knew the size of my ass, you would know I'm not successful at all. That's the story I told myself. I couldn't have friendships. I couldn't have relationships. I couldn't do any of that because I told myself, nobody's going to like me. Have you seen the size of my ass? And everyone judged me. Everyone did. I could see it in their eyes and I believed it. And you know what? One day, as I began to work on myself, I thought, what happens if that's not true? What happens if I can be successful and I still have the same size of ass? And as soon as I let go of that story, the floodgates opened. Did the outside world all of a sudden change how they saw me? No, I changed the way I saw myself. You see, it's not thoughts I'm having, it's not thoughts you're having, it's thoughts I think you're having about me. But who's really doing the judging? I was doing the judging. My belief was causing a vibration that sent out, and even though people may not know what I was judging myself about, they could feel the judgment. Oh, and especially if I got around a man. Oh, trust me, if I got around a man, I would put him in his place energetically by saying, I already know you don't think I'm pretty. I already know you don't think I'm worth anything. I had a belief about this. Now, I'd rather not tell you this. I'd rather you think I'm perfect and I walk on water, but this isn't what was happening. And it was stopping me from a whole bunch of ways that I could serve and a whole bunch of ways that I could be. And when I let that story go, it changed everything. It changed everything. In fact, I know that I've shared the story of me going to the doctor and I got 2 seats on an airplane. I was flying back and forth to Bob's Events. And when I sat in the seat, it was too small and I didn't like it. And so I found out, what could a plus size person do to travel? And I found out that I could go get a medical thing that I could get 2 seats. So I went to my doctor and I said, I'd like to do this. And so she said, jump up on the table. And she marked on the paper one side of my hips and the other side of my hips. And then she measured my ass. Yep, she did. And she put that on a piece of paper and it got sent off to Air Canada. And Air Canada came back and they said, you can't fly on our plane because our seat size is 17 inches and yours is 24. Therefore, you're disabled to sit in a seat. So we're going to give you 2 seats for the price of one. Oh, I had all kinds of story. That's not fair to everyone else. Who am I to take so much room? Like, I had all kinds of stories, but I thought, nope, what would I love? I would love to travel in luxury and comfort. You see, when you're a plus size person, you think you're taking up space for everyone else. And I had to change that belief where no, there's enough room for me. There's enough room for me in the world. And when I started believing that, do you know what? The doors opened up. All kinds of things started happening for me. And the feeling of it was amazing. The feeling of knowing that the universe was really friendly to my ideas. What would happen if you stopped resisting and you said, what would happen if I could think about this differently? And let me tell you, that feeling of freedom is what has opened the doors for me over and over again. The feeling is the secret. And what happened was, I remember, I know I've said this story before, but I remember in the plane one time when we were in the summertime and the plane was overbooked and I still had my extra seat because I had a medical seat, and a woman sat by me and she was like, oh, this plane is crowded. Somebody's going to sit in between us. And she was really flustered. And I said, no one's going to sit here. And she goes, did you not hear? They overbooked the plane. Every seat's going to be taken. And I leaned over and I told her the story about why I had 2 seats. And do you know what she did? She leaned over and grabbed my arm and she said, I love your ass. And that felt so good to me. Nobody has ever told me that my ass was a solution to anything before. And just that feeling was, and we had the best flight and we talked and it felt so good. And I didn't shame myself. I was like, wow, this made space for someone else as well. And that feeling felt so good. And we got off the plane and she wanted to introduce me to her husband. And she said, this is Angie I met on the plane and I love her ass. And her husband went, what? So she told the story. He goes, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I love your ass too. And man, just having 2 people say that, I started thinking, man, there's room for me too. And that feeling inside of me of that freedom that I could be me and it was right for me to be me. I had a lot of messages telling me it's not right for you to be that way. I got it when I went to go buy clothes. I got it when I went to sit somewhere. I got it when I had all kinds of messages telling me that's not true. That's not how it works. But in this moment, I changed my belief. What would happen if? And I remember I went to Bob's event and they kept saying, this is the best event we've ever had. This is the best event we've ever had. And I thought, wow, this is great. I'm having a great time. I think it's the best event I've ever been to. Why? Because I felt that way. And one of Bob's people, her name was Gina, right-hand person for him. She came up to me and she goes, do you know why this was the best event? And I said, no, why? And she said, you were a total light in the room. What happened? And I remember backing up. I told her my ass story. I was crying. She was crying and she said, I love your ass too. And all of a sudden I realized what would happen if I could, instead of condemning myself, what happens if I change the world? And that feeling became so big inside of me. And that's when the movie The Showman came out. This Is Me. You remember the bearded lady singing that? This is me. And that became my anthem. What happens if the thing I was condemning myself was actually my gift in the world? What would happen if that was my gift? What would happen if I could show people how to change the way they see themselves and see the brilliant light that they truly are? And that their success is absolutely guaranteed. And the stories that you tell yourself are keeping the good away from you because you're judging yourself. It's not thoughts other people are thinking. It's not thoughts you're having. It's thoughts you think other people are having about you that's messing with your head. What would happen if you could change the way you see yourself? What would happen if you could love yourself? And let me tell you, discipline without love is punishment. I see people go after their goals with lots of discipline, trying to do it all right and perfect. And you're not getting anywhere. In fact, it just feels harder and harder and harder. What would happen if you could let that go? What would happen if the discipline you had is because you are attuned to what you would love? And that attunement is helping you, the discipline is helping you get where you want to go. Are you operating in the gap or are you operating in the gain? You see, one of the things that I have always wanted to do is to create an environment where people can come and work on their mindset and shift their thoughts by using natural laws and by using our own equipment. We have this incredible equipment we don't know how to turn on. I didn't know how to turn it on. And even 10 years after, 11 years after I started this process, I'm still learning to turn it around. We're always for expansion and fuller expression. Everything that's in you, can I just tell you, everything that's in you to help you succeed, it's already there. It just needs to be rethought of, re-engineered. You know, it's interesting. I'm going to grab this. I didn't know I was going to use it, but it feels good to use it. I'm going to grab this little ball. I used it a couple of weeks ago, but this is how most of us are. We have everything that we need and we're all locked up and it's all tightly bound and we have all kinds of control. It has to be this way. It has to be this way. And let me tell you, when you start letting go, do you know what happens? You start expanding. You start becoming something bigger and more than you ever imagined yourself to be. Now that can be really scary. And we come back down here to protect that light. We don't want the light to show out because what happens if somebody criticizes that light? That's because we're in tune with that, and that's darkness. What would happen if we just let the light come through? And do you know what happens the more and more you let go of control? All of those things that kept you really prickly, that kept you really small, all of a sudden can be rearranged for an expansion. And now it's really easy for time, money, distance, experiences everything to flow to and through you with ease. A lot of light can't get in because of the way we were brought up to see the world. And what would happen if you could let that go? What would happen if people said, I love your ass. I'm so grateful I met it. Do you know what I mean? I know that sounds silly, but this is what people tell me all the time. When I meet them, they'll boop, boop me on the back and say, I love your ass. It's kind of silly, but you rearrange your judgment of yourself. Success is a progressive realization of your worthy ideal. And some of these programs that are running, have you ever had a computer that needs a software update and you haven't updated it? And you know what happens when it's running? It just goes and locks up. That's what happens to us. But what would happen if we allowed a software update? You have all kinds of freedom for things to just flow to and through you. When's the last time you had a software update? Everything that you need for expansion is already in you. It just needs to be rearranged so that you can have the reach that you want to have. What I'd love to do is that if you're here as a guest, and even if you're here as a client, if you would love to book a call with me, I would love to talk with you. No obligation for anything, but I would love to see what brought you here today and what you're excited about. And if there's a way that I can help you expand, man, I would love to talk to you about it, because it is your highest good to go after what you were designed to be. And it's up to you to step into the light. It's up to you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Trust me. We're not broken. We're just ready to expand. And sometimes we've outgrown environments that have kept us really small. Do you know if you take a pumpkin seed and you put it in a little jar, that pumpkin will never grow past that jar? You got to break the jar in order to have the expansion. And we're living in a prison not of our own making. We're living in a prison that we were taught to live in. What would happen? You can walk out of that prison anytime you want. But it's up to you to recognize the door is open. And it's up to you. I don't know, Matt, if you can put my, let me just get my link in here and I'll let you book in. I'm just going to grab it really quickly. I think this is it. Meeting scheduler. Let me do this. Copy link. I'm going to put my link in here. If you want to book a call, I would love for you to book a call. I'm just going to put it in here really quickly. Paste. There you go. You can book a call through that link right there, and I would love to chat with you. And one of the things that I'm committed to is there are 3 things that I'm highly committed to. Number 1 is I believe community is really important so you can be inspired. 2, to have something to learn to evaluate yourself so you can grow even further. And 3, to have support of leaders around you. And that's what's really important for me to be able to share with all of you today is I want to be able to help people expand to be the leaders that we need for today. And most of us, we just need a software update to be that leader in the world. So you know what? Be the leader in your own life. Book a call with me and we will have a chat. I want to thank you for coming on. If you want to get a recording of this, put your email in the chat right here and we'll make sure that you get a recording of it. Good? All right, I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes and answer any questions. I'm going to turn the recording off real quick. But if you want to put your thing in, I'll stay.